Hello friends, welcome back. I am so glad that you're here. We are going to be working on our foundation paper piecing today, just as promised from last week. I'm finally getting around to it. This is the quilt that I showed off. Well, I forgot to show off in the last foundation paper piecing we did. And a lot of you saw it in the background or were like, wait, tell me about that quilt. So this is my really scrappy foundation paper piecing star. And this quilt actually almost sold, and then it just happened to fall through. And I remember I was so bummed because it fell through. Then I was like, wait, I really like this. So that's kind of motivating me to not try to sell my quilts anymore because I just love everything too much. But this is what we're going to be making. Huge thank you to everyone who bought those scrap bags. I just have to show you this real fast. Look at how empty these buckets are, except for yellow. I don't know what kind of like respawn that yellow bucket is on, but it is in full gear. It just never diminished. So thank you for buying those scrap bags. Look at how low the pinks are. That is crazy. That was really fun. I originally said I would sell 3, and then I ended up selling 5, and I was like, sweet, good to have it gone. So thank you for helping me empty my buckets. Let's see. So this is a really scrappy version. Even like my backgrounds and all of these are different. So I think for the most part, those scraps and stuff that that those of you just bought, or the scraps that you're trying to get rid of, this is an excellent project for that, for the star itself. But I think when it comes to the background, you're going to have to get some yardage because there's some weird, big, funny pieces in there. Donna, this is the shout out for you, girl, okay? This is the pattern, and I talked about this, and it was a free pattern that I got in my piecing paper, and then I said I would share, but I only had a copy of a copy, and it was really trashy, and then Donna came to my rescue, and she said, hey, look what I found. So thank you, Donna, for diving down into the interwebs to find the actual pattern. You are amazing, and I owe you $1 million. So let me just write you a check. But I am so grateful that you were able to find that. Thank you so much, Donna. She did give me the link, so I will share that with you guys in the description. Or if you'd like to email me, I can just send you the PDF of it. So it's really exciting. Thank you so much, Donna. We get a much better version now. Quick recap. This is the piecing paper that I really like. There are a lot of options that you can use for piecing paper. I had a few commenters tell me that you could get like a newspaper roll, so that really thin newspaper, and like wax paper, or what was the other one? I don't know. Just believe me that there are a lot of options. So if this isn't for you, that's okay. But this is what I personally like, and so that's just what we're going to be using. It kind of has the texture of a dryer sheet, and I like that because it's stable enough to hold the seam, but it's soft enough that it will rip out pretty easily. Okay, now that I've crinkled that one, this is what your pattern is going to look like. So we will need 4 of these pages to finish one star. These 2 triangles make up 1 corner of these stars. Does that make sense? This dark outline is your seam allowance, so do not cut that, and do not cut on the solid lines because those are our sewing lines. So by the time you have it cut out, it should look like this. So we've kept the gray on the outside, and we will sew on the solids. Numbers on the pattern mean what order you're going to piece them in. So we've got 1, and then we'll put a seam here over here with 2, and then we'll rotate to 3, right? And so that way we're kind of like layering our fabrics so that they all lay down nicely. I was taught that you do foundation paper piecing on the back. I'm sure there's a real technical reason for that. I'm assuming so that when you go to iron, you can see everything clearly, but I don't know. In this circumstance, this works, so I just do as I'm told. That's my science behind it. I really like the Dylan bundle. This is a bundle that's in my shop, and I love the yellows. I love the tans. I love the light kind of like aqua blue kind of, I don't know. I don't even know what you would call that, but that is one of my favorite colors for sure. And then we have these darker navies. This one is actually the one in the bundle, but I've just got my buckets out here. This is an excellent scrap buster, but the scraps have been busted because I sent so many away. So I'm just going to be cutting out of yardage, which is totally okay. We just get to hack a lot. So I think for this first one, for the star, I'm going to do a mix of all of my yellows as this middle star right here. And then for this border, I'm going to do some dark blue. And then for this outer border, I'm going to do the light blue. That's kind of my game plan for the first one. And we'll kind of feel out how that goes. And it'll still come out scrappy, even if I have a color scheme. And I like that. All right, let's get working on this. So as you can see, I already hacked into my fabric, but I will show you one more time because I know I'll use those pieces. So here's just a scrap that I have. Very technical cutting here. And I know that that will fit right there. So now I have 2 of those squares and we'll put those off to the side, okay? Very official, very precise. The first piece is always face up, right side up, okay? So that way, when we start layering and ironing over, they're all going the same direction. So let's pin this square on here. This is like incredibly massive for what I needed, but I did what I did and I don't regret it. Okay, now we are going to flip this over and I'm going to fold a line on that number 2, that dark line in between number 2 and number 1. Can you kind of see my crease there? And that is just going to show me where I need to sew. But where is that long skinny ruler of mine? This one would work, but I like smaller rulers. That is the long skinny ruler that I feel like I lose every stinking time. Over there in all the random junk that sits at the end of the table that you can't see. That makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to find that 1/4 inch line. I'm going to line that up with the fold of my paper. So that will actually give me a 1/4 inch seam allowance for that dark yellow. Do you see that? So I'm a 1/4 inch away from the line. And again, that's just to give us that seam allowance so that when we do sew the next one on, we don't lose the yellow or for it to fray out. Again, I think that's personal preference. I also learned in our last foundation paper piecing video that there are a lot of different ways to do this. This is just how it works for me. Okay, so let's get some navy or some dark blue because I have none. I just have that grid, so I can pull that out at least. But let's do this one. And it's just going to be like a little skinny thing. I really ate up all my room with those buckets there. So I'm trying to be messy in a contained space, and it makes me crazy. Just let me be messy how I want. All right, we're going to use the ruler. Hack. And chop. How many synonyms of hack can I say today? We are going to put right sides together on that one. So I've got my dark blue face down right on that yellow. We're going to rotate. And if you'd like to pin here, you totally can. But we're going to rotate to that side and then sew directly on that 2 line. But we're not going to go into the gray, and we're going to try our best not to go into the 3. If you do, it's not like the end of the world. Just, you know, try not to. And at the beginning of our stitch, we are going to stitch, then back stitch, and then continue our line. Hit the end, back stitch, and then go back to our end. And that just really secures our end threads so that when it comes to ripping, it all stays put and we don't like lose our seam in there, okay? All right, so there we have our first two sewn together. I'm going to take the pin out of this yellow now that it's attached, and we're going to go iron this one up and over. And there are our two first pieces. What a beautiful star we're making. Isn't that lovely? It will not look like much at this point and as we're working through it, but once you start to trim, it'll come together. Trust the process. Okay, so next up is going to be 3. Same thing, we're going to fold right on that 3 line. We are going to put our 1/4 inch on the fold and then trim that excess. We'll just have a bits pile over there. And we're going to do the same thing, so let's find a different navy in here. I really need more navies. That's what I'm feeling. Yeesh. I love navies. I have been using them too much and not replacing them. All right, so here's some yardage. We're gonna do a more nice hack because that's a good 1/2 yard there. I'm just gonna take like a 5.5 inch strip. And we'll call that a win because that will give us actually a lot of fabric, especially if that is just going to be the star pieces. So fold you back up, my friend. And tuck you back in here. All right, so we just need a long skinny piece. And chop. We're gonna line this piece up now with that cut that we made. Again, if you'd like to pin, you can. We're gonna flip it over and then sew on that 3. So you can see my back stitch on both of those ends there. Go iron this up and over. So I think it's quite satisfying. The more pieces you add, the more it like starts to appear. I just think it's cool. All right, next up is 4. And so this is the bigger outside border. Fold on the line, add up our 1/4 inch. Get the ruler to stay where I want it to, and trim. Bits pile. Boom. So if you look, this navy is going to just be the tiniest little section here. All right, cuteness. What do you have for me today? That one's a cutie. Oh, and the butterflies. I'm telling you, this is one of my most favorite fabrics. This butterfly fabric. And I'm hoarding this last little bit. Studio E fabrics. I may have to like find it and hope that they still have it because I love it so much. All right, let's take our 5.5 cut again. A little goes a long way. This is totes crooked. It's fine. Oh no! Look at how little I have. I love you so much. I don't know. I hate watching fabric just sit there, but at the same time, I love it so much and I don't want to use it. It's a vicious cycle, really. Okay. So this one's going to need to be a little bit thicker, but I'm sure it'll still be fine. Let's do right sides together. Flip. Okay, you guessed it. Let's go iron. Let's cut some of this while it's out and I have what somewhat clear space. I'll have to show you as this looks like when we're done. It definitely starts a lot more organized than it ends. I'll say that. All right, 5.5. Ooh, I'm so messy. Are you feeling frustrated with my sloppiness right now? I think it's funny what things I'm really picky about being clean and what things I'm like, it'll be all right. This is one of them. Can you tell? It'll be all right. Just throw it wherever. Okay. I love this one. This one is Rifle Paper Company. So on that front, I was approved for cotton and steel fabrics, and they carry Rifle Paper Company, which I'm so excited about. But they're opening, like you have to spend so much a year, right? But their first purchase minimum is $1,500. So I'm like, okay, I'll work up to that. So I'm saving money so that we can get some Rifle Paper Company because I just love it so much. I love everything so much. I'm sensing a trend. All right, we've got our teal piece, or what color? What color would you call this? Like, it's not blue, it's not green, but it's one of my favorites. Got that folded over on the line. Now we trim, bits pile, right sides together, sew, back stitch, sew, back stitch, sew, iron. All right, now we're getting to our background here. So 5, 6. 6 is this corner right here. So I I sewed a little far on that line, so my paper didn't want to pick up. So I just tore it a little so that I could get that fold exactly where I want it. So like I said, if you sew over, it's not the end of the world. And honestly, your seam will be hidden, but as you get better, it'll be easier not to sew. I had a brain fart. I apparently can't pick fabric and talk at the same time. We're going to do this one. I like those tans in there. So it's still bringing in the tan element. We just have to make sure it's thick enough. So when it gets to these bigger, kind of trickier pieces, we're just going to do a tester right here. Okay, we're going to put those right sides together, and we're going to fold up and kind of eyeball 1/4 inch just to make sure that it'll fit. That's my scientific way of handling this. I'm so particular. All right, last piece is number 7. This one is where it's going to take a big piece because we need to hit that angle, but also get that length. So it's pretty much going to be a giant rectangle, even though we only need a triangle. I don't think I have a piece that big in my scraps. Oh, that's not a scrap. Okay, there's a big scrap. That's like almost a 1/2 yard in there. All right. Okay, so even though we won't need all of that fabric, we are going to need it for the height and this angle. So you feel like you're going to be cutting more than you need. And again, just to make sure that you get all of your edges covered, because we need the fabric to the edge of that shaded area. And then we will trim around that to give us that 1/4 inch seam allowance. So this one will work. I probably could have cut my rectangle a little bit wider, but it'll work. I just don't have as much cushion. All right, so now we have all of our pieces. You can kind of see that star forming down there, right? So we have all of our pieces. We are going to grab again our ruler, line that 1/4 inch line up with the solid line. So that should give you right to the edge of that shading. And we are going to trim everything off of the edge of here. And these points are cut flat. Do you see the paper there? It's cut flat. We do need to cut that point off of our fabric. It just helps with bulk in the middle at the end if there aren't the points. So and there we have our first point for our star. All right, we're not going to finish this whole star together, but I will at least do this piece so that I can show you how to sew them together, okay? So we're just going to pick some fun music and we're going to do a time lapse and I'm going to whip through the rest of this. Here we go. All right, now we have our two star points. We're gonna put them together. I'm not gonna lie, right now they look a little crazy because you're like, ooh, that's a lot of weird fabrics to put together. But I think it's more about the visual, like looking onto it here. Because all of these are just as crazy, if not crazier, but it's the look from afar that we're gonna get, especially because those dark blue pieces are I did those wrong. I put, in the first one, we did the light blue or the light sagey blue, and then I flip-flopped them, and I put the light blue as the inside and the navy as the outside. So it looks especially funky. Are you sure that you want to watch this video and try to learn something from me? Because I can't even put colors in the same spot. Who cares? We're going with it. That's like such a me thing to do. All right, I'm just going to show you how to put these together. You see that solid line right here? That is our sewing line. And if you notice, that solid line does not go completely to the edge. We still have the seam allowance right there. So you are literally sewing solid end to solid end and stopping. Do not sew in the seam allowance. So I still did back stitches there at the ends, as you can see, and we have not sewn through that seam allowance. It is easy to tear these little seam allowances off right here on this side, because once you iron this open, they're actually kind of hard to get out. So this is something that I've just newly started doing, is just tear where you're going to iron, because sometimes it's hard to get it out of all those nooks and crannies. You can't just come off in one piece. Has to be 10 little bits, huh? That would be too easy. All right, I am going to go iron this with the seams open, and I'll show you. And there we have that sitting nice and flat, and they line up so well together. And you can see the seam is open on the back. So like I said, it's just easier for me to pick that seam before we get over there. We are not going to be tearing any more paper until we have all 4 corners sewn together. We need these solid lines to sew them, okay? So you can see in the middle there, we don't have the points sewed down. And that is so at the very end, when we have all of that meeting in the middle, we can kind of just iron it in a spiral or iron it flat there on the back in the middle. So there will actually not be any stitch in the middle, very middle of the block, which seems wrong, but it's okay. So there is our foundation paper piecing. One corner, you can see right there. I just keep laughing at that. And even while I was doing it, I was like, I think you got these in the wrong spot. And I'm like, shh, no, I know what I'm doing. It's like there are 2 voices in my head, and one is reasonable, and the other one is like, I'm being creative. Let me do what I want. Sometimes those 2 halves of my brain like to argue. I'm not going to take it out. I'm actually going to leave it just as is. And I think in the grand scheme of things, when it all gets put together, I don't really think you're going to notice. So I love that. I think it's really cute. I think maybe on one or on a few of my stars, I'm going to use the same yellow throughout the middle, use the same teal and the same dark as the border. You know what I mean? I think I'm going to try to make it out of one fabric and see what that looks like, because it'll still be scrappy, but I think it'll be really cute. So there is foundation paper piecing. The construction is good. The color placement is a little off. So that's what we're just going to call extra scrappy. And I hope to see you guys on Thursday, where we will work on another buttons block. Next up, we're doing, it's the green one. It's the green one. We're going to do these cutie greens, and I will see you then. Goodbye, friends.